As an MJ fan, I think it's important to countermeasure all the negative slander MJ has been getting in the mainstream media throughout his life. I'm just a small YouTuber, but I'm still willing to portray him accurately as a person, artist, businessman, family man he was. So of course, I decided to make a small video library of people who talk about him and his different aspects. He was larger than life, so it's only right. The first aspect I'm gonna bring forth here are his peers talking about his power and his business acumen. In my opinion, bringing together an account from people who were around him is going to be far more accurate than newspapers and news outlets describing him. So let's get into it. The first one I want to look at is Akon, Michael's friend, but also musical peer, who was interviewed by DJ Vlad, who I recommend checking out, by the way. People in this video are taken from his channel, so all credit to him. Michael Jackson's friend, but also musical peer, Akon. Let's go.
We actually had some real conversations. I got to know his type and all that. He liked models, tall, slim models. You know what I'm saying?
So all the, the pedophile and the gay stuff that came.
Man, I think all that was propaganda because Mike was doing such big things in the publishing world. I always felt like the music side, he was buying out a lot of great real estate. That
the Beatles catalog?
A lot of stuff, and he wouldn't sell it back or wouldn't offer no options for it to be sold. And then of course his own catalog, there was a big fight around that. I think what Michael was more about, it was power, because he was super smart and understood what real value meant to America. So he had access to a lot of American just value, and he owned it. And if he didn't own it 100%, he owned it 50%. You know what I'm saying? Like he owned a big chunk of America's value. That's the best way to put it. And at some point, they're gonna wanna have the option to buy it back or control it to an extent, and Mike just wouldn't allow it. And I think at that moment, that's when a lot of the propaganda and all this whispers and stuff start coming out about him, which was clearly not true.
As we can see, Akon is saying everything I lay forth in my other videos about the music industry feeling threatened by MJ's power, confirming my suspicion. He was too smart, becoming too powerful, and far too intelligent for the industry, having access to American value, as Akon says. And remember, as I said, this is Akon, not only Mike's personal friend, but also a professional musician, an artist who has dealt with the top bunch of the industry, knowing the ins and outs of the game, being in it for more than 20 years. More than any news media outlet, Akon knows the ins and outs of the music industry. Yes, he might be biased toward his friend, but so was the media, only against him. So we gotta trust one of them, and I choose to trust Akon. The next one I want to look at is Darkchild. Darkchild has been working with Michael on many of his projects.
Sitting there and we just talking really about nothing. It was just like, yo, we just kicking it. And then I went to use the restroom and I saw a note he wrote in the restroom saying, talk to about his publishing. So I'm like, yo, this is why I'm here. So then I come back and he goes, so I want to talk to you about something. He goes, I want to talk to you about your publishing and see if you're interested in selling it to me.
You wanted to buy your publishing?
Yeah.
Right, because I remember I interviewed Eddie Griffin.
Yeah.
Right, and those two were close.
They were, yeah.
Very close.
Yeah.
Eddie actually took Michael to his court date and everything.
Yeah.
And Eddie was telling me about the story that Michael was telling him. He was working with Paul McCartney on one of their projects, right? And Michael was like, yeah, you ever thought of selling your publishing? He goes, oh, I thought about it. I wanted whatever, 30 million. He goes, oh, okay, that's interesting. And the next day, Michael came back and said, oh, I bought your publishing. Yeah. 25 million. I paid a few $1 million extra, but yeah, I own it all now.
Yeah.
Like he would do shit like that.
So yeah, he definitely talked to me about it, but then he talked to me about his it was really on his album, not necessarily everything, but just his album,
Oh, he wanted to own all the publishing on the album you guys are working on.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
Yeah, and I was like, let's talk about it, let's get into it. And then all I know was maybe not even 2 days later, he called me and was just like, you know what, man? He's like, you're a good guy. He's like, scrap that idea. And I was like, wow, that was huge, because he really technically, I'm sure he could have just been yo, here's this bag, move on.
Right.
You know,
kind of bully his way into it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
Michael
sure
Jackson.
Yeah.
Like, oh, if you don't want to do it, I'll just go find a new producer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Michael Jackson.
Who's not going to work with Michael Jackson?
And what people don't really understand is that when people say, yo, Michael owned the Beatles catalog. No, Michael owned Sony ATV, half of it.
I heard.
So when Tommy was trying to sign me when I was 18, Michael was trying to sign me because he owned half of Sony ATV.
Yeah.
Like, that's what's crazy. So you're talking about Babyface, Mariah.
It's interesting to see where Michael wanted to go with this. As Rodney Jerkins says, it wasn't uncommon for Michael to approach peer artists to get them to sell their publishing to him. He did it with Paul McCartney, had the ATV catalog, and asked Rodney Jerkins as well. Who knows who else he wanted to buy publishing rights from? Obviously, Michael was thinking of competing with the bigger conglomerates, creating his own music superpower, but doing the opposite, letting Rodney's publishing go, and letting him keep it, because Michael was not a power-hungry, I'll do anything for money type of guy. He was a powerful businessman, but also encompassed good morals in an industry where it is far too rare. Still, there's another interesting thing that Rodney Jerkins says that I actually wasn't aware of until he said it. Let's watch this clip.
Michael had a relationship with all these countries that America didn't have. Because he was a superstar everywhere. So he would travel to all these countries and meet with these presidents and African countries and European countries, and the US didn't really like that. You know, they were kind of edgy over how powerful he was.
Mm-hmm.
So there's really a lot going on under the scenes with
I mean, you never know. I mean, I try not to look into it too deep, but I do. Michael's ahead of his time. I mean,
And this is actually Vlad saying it. Mike was so powerful that he had relationships with countries, meeting presidents and leaders, making the leaders of the United States edgy over that. How many artists today has that type of power? Drake, Taylor Swift, The Weeknd, nobody. And this directly ties into another fascinating take on Mike's power that was from Dallas Austin, who worked with Mike. He takes the power thing to another level, describing it not as an artist against corporation thing, aka Mike versus Sony, but rather an artist versus United States thing.
And he was saying, you know, like, it's kind of him against the United States, you know, like when he went to where they were looking for him everywhere and the plane was landing in different places, and Michael's getting off here and the plane's taking back off, you know. And he's like, Dallas, I was sitting in Moscow watching myself land in different places on TV because the United States is looking for me everywhere. And the Russian government basically hit him, and he wrote "Stranger in Moscow" in this hotel room while he's watching himself on TV. Like, oh, the KGB is after me. Like, and I was thinking, hey man, how much power do you have where the Russian government takes you and hides you? And then he did, I don't know if you remember the History album cover, where he had the whole Brazilian army, and they imitated the Hitler video all the way down to the T, where, you know, the little dog is running and they got the soldiers marching, and it's going by pole to pole, and then the flags drop down, and it was his take, like, you know, like, this is me against the United States in a way. It turned into a real battle. It turned into a real battle between him and the label, him and the United States, just him against the world, you know. While we were working at the studio, you know, he took a satellite and broadcasted himself from Neverland, because he said that people would, if he went on any news station, they would alter his words, and, you know. So I was just like, this dude is another kind of powerful, and he would be like, Dallas, you know, I have relationships with countries that the United States don't have, and they don't like that. You know, I can go into any country right now and be, you know, more important than anybody there, and they don't like it, so it started to turn on me. And I started to see him, like, we're at the studio, and he goes, let me show you this newspaper article. It says, you know, Michael Jackson thinks Africa stinks, and he has his hand over his nose like this. And he goes, I went over there and I just built all these hospitals and I did all this stuff over there in the United States. See what they say. And it was sitting in the studio, man, and 2 days later, I swear to God, this was like coming to America. Like, they came in, rose petals were thrown on the floor, right? And all of a sudden, this king and queen of Africa walk in, lion heads, gold, all kinds of stuff. And we all sitting in there like, wow, what is going on? And they're like, Michael, we just want to come and thank you for everything you've done for us. The hospitals you built, the this, that, and the other. And I'm like, this dude is another story. Like, yeah, I've been around a lot of artists, but that kind of power.
He says that the US literally was going after Mike, looking for him in planes that landed everywhere when that scandal first broke through and he fled to Russia. That's crazy. Interesting to hear him say that his relationship with the US was bad because of his relationship with other countries. I guess this kind of goes into that conspiracy part again. The interesting part here is also when Michael says KGB was stalking me on Stranger in Moscow. To the casual viewer of the video, this just seems like a poetic take on depression or something, or even a poetic take on his scandals, but nobody, not even I, at the time the video first aired, knew that he was literally being stalked in helicopters. The last one I'm gonna show is Godfrey, a legendary comedian who didn't know Mike personally, but knew Jermaine, Mike's brother. He definitely has wits enough to him to see behind the curtains. Let's see what he says.
Michael Jackson, people talking that shit now because they're trying to fuck his legacy up, and it ain't working with me. He's the coldest motherfucker to ever reach the stage. I saw Michael in concert, okay? And I saw him, and I screamed like a bitch, and I don't scream like a bitch for nobody, okay? And you know I'm Wu-Tang all day, but I'm like, Wu-Tang, yeah, I love these motherfuckers. I saw Michael Jackson with my brother, and we was like, all right, Michael's coming out. Ah! Ah! I was screaming right along those girls. I was screaming. I threw my dirty drawers. They were all doodle stained, and I tossed them at Mike, and I hope he would have caught them. I was like, ah! I did the same shit. And that's the only dude that could bitch me up like that. Michael, because we all wanted to be Mike. We all danced like Mike. Mike influenced the world. There's kids in this generation, like little kids that know who Michael Jackson is. Please, man. Michael Jackson was so popular, his name, I thought he had only one name. I was like, what Michael Jackson's last name? What's Michael Jackson's last name? Michael Jackson. You just say Michael Jackson. We would even say Michael Jackson. It was like, Michael Jackson. I love Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson. It was Michael Jackson. You know what I mean? And he influenced the world. He had a good heart. He has Guinness Book. He gave out away to the most charities. He never bragged about that shit. He was and I know a guy, my friend who's a cameraman, and his father is a big producer of the Oscars and all that. Michael used to hang out, and he said Michael was the nicest guy. He treated us with respect. He was so kind. He never did anything crazy. I know people who knew Mike like that. I don't believe none of that shit. I think it's the fact that Michael had power. Michael owned Sony. He owned a lot of shit, and they wanted to get rid of his ass, and they wanted to ruin his fucking reputation. That's how I feel. I don't want to hear that shit. You know what I mean? Michael was dope, and he influenced everybody. Every continent knew who Michael was, and if Michael gave a message, you know, people be like, I want to listen to that. Too much power, man. So they go, let's do this child shit. And because he was a child, that's why he loved children. He was a child.
Once again, too powerful. Confirmation after confirmation. I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to have some type of suspicion going on here. If people outside of the music industry have that type of a suspicion of them trying to take Mike down, why shouldn't it be easy to have at least some type of inclination toward that for common folks as well? So that's it, guys. Short, sweet, straight to the point. And next time, I look at other people talking about other aspects of, the king. Hit that bell, subscribe, like, and comment. I love talking to community people about anything music, so hit me up and I'll definitely answer. Peace.